How are you guys doing? Today is Tuesday, June 15th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an individual profile on Mohamed Salah, the elite Egyptian forward who currently plays for Liverpool, turns 29 today. And with this episode, of course, we're going to go through his accolades, his achievements, everything that he's been able to achieve from the beginning of his career until now, to give people a better sense of why he is classified as an elite athlete within his own position. Because there are so many soccer players in the world that play forward, it's very rare to be an elite player at that position in which there's so many people that compete for it. So just to give a little bit of background, Salah, just to give you a good sense of the guy, he's about 5'9", pretty stocky. He's very fast. He's deceivingly fast, amazing with his feet. He has great balance, great control, and not to mention he's incredibly creative with the ball. I would imagine he has all the tricks, all the skills in the book. He has amazing shot accuracy. He has amazing chemistry with the front line of Liverpool alongside their striker, Roberto Firmino, and their elite other wing on the other side, Sadio Mane. Not to mention, he's probably one of the best dribblers of the ball ever. And just with that said, I'm just going to get a little bit into his background. Because, he is wearing number 11 for Liverpool after all. So he's originally from Egypt, and he would eventually get his start playing for Al Makaloun. And while he was establishing himself as one of the best young players in Egypt, as one of the best players in Egypt, he would actually get named to the Egyptian team as a teenager in 2011, which was, of course, 10 years ago when he was a teenager. But even from then, he's been able to kind of build up from there. While he was on the team that he was with in Egypt, Al Makaloun, there was a riot that broke out in one of the stadiums that suspended one of the seasons. But while he was there, he scored 11 goals in the 38 appearances that he made for the club. And he had made enough of an impact that what he was doing, of course, caught the eye of the manager of Basel. In the summer of 2012, Mo Salah competed with the Egyptian team in the Olympics, and in the 4 matches he played, he finished with 3 goals, as of course they were knocked out pretty early. But following that summer, he would get his very first season in the European circuit in Basel in Switzerland. In his very first season, in 2012-2013, his age 20 season, he would start 12 of the 29 games he played for a team that finished with the best record in the Swiss Super League. He would finish with 5 goals and 4 assists in the 29 matches he played. And not to mention, they would get knocked out of the Champions League knockout round, but they would play in Europa League. They would lose in the semifinals of the Europa League as Salah had 2 goals and 3 assists. Over the course of this campaign, Mo Salah was actually named the Basel Player of the Year in 2012-2013 as a young player. At the time, this was his age 20 season. And following that season, that was his only full season in Switzerland. He would come back for another year in 2013-2014, and for the first half of the season, he would start 12 of the 18 matches he played. He would finish with 4 goals and 3 assists, and Basel would eventually go on to, I believe, win the Swiss Super League for the 2nd year in a row. But halfway through the season, Mo Salah was eventually picked up, or he eventually signed with Chelsea to finish the second half of the season. In the second half of the season, he started 6 of the 10 games he played in a season where Chelsea finished with the 3rd best record in the Premier League at the time. They would not win a trophy this year. The closest they came was a runner. They finished 2nd in the Super Cup. They lost in the Super Cup after winning the Europa League final the previous year. In the 10 games he played with Chelsea that season, Salah would register about 2 goals and an assist. And then following that season, he would come back to Chelsea for yet another season. In this season with Chelsea, not to mention that he also had 5 goals in Champions League that year as well. But following that, in 2014-2015, in his age 22 season, he would play 3 games with Chelsea. He didn't start any of them. But after that, he would eventually get loans. He would get an 18-month loan to Fiorentina. And when he played for Fiorentina in the Serie A, Fiorentina is Italian for Florence. So in that season, he would start 10 of the 16 games he played. He would register 6 goals and 3 assists in the Serie A. Not to mention, mention that he would score 1 goal and an assist in the Europa League, 2 goals in the Coppa Italia, as he was starting to establish himself as one of the best young players in all of Italy. When Fiorentina decided that they wanted to make his deal permanent, he backed out of that deal. He decided that he declined and he signed with Roma instead. And then when he went so after that, he would play his first couple seasons. At first he was on loan at Roma for 2015-2016. This was his age 23 season, and in that season he would start 32 of the 34 games that he would play. In 2015-2016, especially in Serie A, he would finish with 14 goals and 6 assists, the first time Mo Salah ever scored double-digit goals in a top league. And of course, he was in Italy, so he was getting the recognition that he he deserved at the time. Not to mention that in the 7 games in Champions League, he would log 1 goal. As Roma this season would finish third in they finished third in Serie A. They lost in the round of 16 in Coppa Italia, and they would end up losing in the round of 16 in the Europa League. This would be the only year in which Mo Salah actually led Roma in goals for the season. After that, it was Checo, but following that season, Mo Salah would come back and actually sign with Roma as an official player in 2016-2017, following that summer. And in 2016-2017, he would register he would go on to start 29 of the 31 games he would play in his final Serie A season. In that season, he would finish with 15 goals and 11 assists. That is the first time that in a domestic league, he registered double-digit goals and double-digit assists. Many people were starting to recognize him as one of the best players in the Serie A. Not to mention that this was also a season in which AS Roma finished with the second best records. They finished as the runners-up in Serie A, with Mo Salah and Edin Dzeko being some of the bigger differences. They lost in the semifinals of Coppa Italia. In Coppa Italia, Salah would finish with 2 goals in that season, and then not to mention that they would finish round of 16 in Champions League, and then they would get demoted. No. They would lose in the Champions League playoff round, and they lost in the Europa League round of 16. And in those games, or at least in the Europa League, Salah would finish with 2 goals and an assist in that season. Following the 2016-2017 season, Liverpool decided that they were going to officially sign him, and I believe he signed with Liverpool he signed for a fee of 36 million, but regardless, once they signed him, he became a Liverpool legend. Liverpool is where he currently plays today. But to give you a sense of what his debut season was like at Liverpool, following the season in which he had double-digit goals and assists in Italy, his first season in Liverpool was his age 25 season in 2017-2018. In that year, he would start 34 of the 36 games in a season in which Liverpool finished with the 4th best record in the Premier League. The closest they came to winning a trophy that year was they were the runners-up in the Champions League, and I believe this is the season in which they lost to Real Madrid. But regardless, in that season alone, starting in the Premier League, in the 36 games he played in the Premier League, Mo Salah finished with 32 goals, the first time he ever finished with 30 goals, and I believe he broke the Premier League record at the time. So that was, I think that's still the Premier League record. He finished with 32 goals in the Premier League. Not to mention he had 10 assists as well, so he had that going for him. He walked away with the Golden Boot. For the Premier League, he was named the African Football Player of the Year. Not to mention that he would be given... like I said, he won the Golden Boot for that year after, of course, setting the Premier League record for goals in a season. And then in Champions League, when they made it all the way to the runner-up, he played 15 games in a Champions League campaign in which they lost to Real Madrid. He finished with 11 goals and 4 assists. So, of course, first time he ever eclipsed double-digit goals, and I believe the only time he's ever eclipsed double-digit goals in UEFA Champions League thus far up to this point. In the FA Cup, he would score a goal in that game as well. And following the 2017-2018 season in which Mo Salah which he established himself as arguably or inarguably the best scorer, the best forward in the entire Premier League. He would play with Egypt in the World Cup. I mean, they wouldn't make it far. I mean, in the 2 games he played, he finished with 2 goals, but they would get knocked out at group stage. And following the summer of 2018, Mo Salah would come back to Liverpool for his second season, his age 26 season. In 2018-2019, he would start 37 of the 38 matchups that Liverpool played, in a season where they would finish as runners-up in the Premier League for the first time since 2014. They did win a trophy, and that trophy just happened to be the Champions League. That year, they went all the way down to they made it to the very end, where they faced off against Tottenham Hotspur, and they were able to pull off a 2-0 win. And the first goal would come in the second minute off of a penalty kick from Mo Salah. Also adding the goal from Origi in the 87th minute, they were able to eclipse Tottenham Hotspur. And even before they had won the Premier League, that was the first Champions League win that they've had since 2005, just to get when Steven Gerrard was on the team. But that's how big this win was. And in this campaign, but first, starting off in the Premier League, in the 38 matches he played, Mo Salah finished with 22 goals and 8 assists. That's the second time he's ever scored 20 goals in a domestic season in his life. And the 8 assists is the third most assists he's ever put up in a season. In the 12 Champions League matches he played, he finished with 5 goals and a couple of assists. That's the second time he ever scored at least 5 goals in a Champions League campaign. And not to mention, in 2018-19, he would be given the Golden Boot for the second year in a row. That is the trophy that they give to the player that leads the entire league in scoring. So, of course, that's the second and the most recent time that Mo Salah has led the league in goals. But following the 2018-19 season, Mo Salah would return to Liverpool for his third season, his age 27 season. In 2019-2020, this is, of course, a season that was heavily impacted by COVID. And by the time that COVID had hit, Liverpool was running away with the title, but they hadn't officially clinched it yet. But by the end of the season, they would go on to win the Premier League for the first time since 1990. Mo Salah would play 33. He would start 33 of the 34 games that he would play in the season. And in this season, he would finish with 19 goals and 10 assists. This is the 5th season in a row in which he put up double-digit goals in a domestic season, or for a European team. This is the third time in his career he had done double-digit goals and double-digit assists. The second time he had done so in the Premier League. But additionally, he helped lead Liverpool to one of their biggest titles ever. And not to mention, before that, they won the Super Cup and they won the Club World Cup. And additionally, that year they would go on to lose in the round of 16 in Champions League, but they were able to bring home the trophy that they have been seeking for decades. So of course, this is a big legacy win, and not to mention that Mo Salah was a big part of the reasons why they were able to win. And then following the 2019-2020 campaign, that was, of course, heavily impacted by COVID. This transitions us into the most recent season that Mo Salah played, his age 28 season, the 2020-2021 campaign. And in his 4th season at Liverpool, he would start 34 of the 37 matchups in a season in which Liverpool finished with the 3rd best record in the Premier League. The closest they came to winning a trophy was they were runners-up for the Community Shield trophy, in which I believe they lost it. They lost to Arsenal on penalties. But regardless, in the 2020-2021 season, especially for Mo Salah, in the Premier League, he would finish with 22 goals and 5 assists in the 37 matches he played. That is actually tied for the second most amount of goals he's ever scored in a Premier League season with the 2018-19 Champions League campaign. The 5 assists is actually the least amount of assists he's had since he was playing in Italy. But regardless, still a crazy amount of goals. And then also he would finish with, in the 10 games he would play with in Champions League, he'd finish with 6 goals, and a campaign which led Liverpool to getting knocked out in the quarterfinal round by Real Madrid. And all of that currently leads us to where we are now with Mohamed Salah. Today, he turns 29 years old. I believe there is no reason to think that he is going to slow down at any point anytime soon. And just because of the way he was able to rise up and become one of Europe's most talented players, put together a virtuoso season, be the primary contributor of a Champions League season, and be the primary contributor of a Premier League title, all in 3 seasons in a row. And not to mention that this season was on par with his other 2 years. He finished second in scoring to Harry Kane on the year. So, of course, with that said, I think it's worth saying that Mo Salah is one of the best forwards, unarguably, in the Premier League and especially in the world. And I can't wait to see what his career looks like as he continues to grow as a player. But with that said, that's everything I got to say. But with that said, I want to wish Mo Salah a happy 29th birthday. I want to thank everyone for listening to all 15 minutes of this piece. If you ever get a chance to watch Mo Salah, he does play for the Egyptian team, and I believe he wears number 10 when he does. But he currently wears number 11 for Liverpool, and he's definitely one of their best players to look forward to. But if you ever get a chance to, check him out. With that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to this piece. I hope all is well. I want to wish Mo Salah a happy 29th birthday. And once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I will come back tomorrow with another episode of The Elite for tomorrow, Wednesday, June 16th, 2021. Thanks for listening to my piece. I hope all is well. Peace out.